This season, I'm setting out to hit 3k IO using Skill-Cap's brand new one-click UI. This UI is said to give you everything that you need to climb the ranks in Mythic Plus, complete with plater profiles, class-specific weak auras, any add-ons that you'll need in Mythic Plus, and so much more. That's all fine and dandy though, but does Skill-Cap's UI stand up to the test of Mythic Plus? Well, that's what I'm going to find out. During my climb though, we have a few rules. The first of which obviously is that I'm going to be using their base UI. I am allowed to make customizations and optimize it based on what I feel my needs are, but I'm not going to be downloading any other major add-ons or tools to change it up a bunch. Basically, what you see in these videos is what you get, and if I do end up making any changes, I will tell you what I did and why. I also will be doing this as a class I've never played before, Rep Paladin. To make it even worse, I'll be doing this without having my character linked to my Raider IO, so that I can get the real experience that a player like you might have trying to climb a Mythic Plus. And that's it. First things first though, let's set this baby up. It was really rather simple. All I had to do was go to Skill-Cap's website where they walked me through each and every step. Go to WoW Up, import the add-on, and click install. Then in game, it basically did all of the work and bam, I had a new UI. There also is a video they made that walks you through the setup here and why it's so good. Out the box, there were a few tweaks that I made. For example, I enabled the add-on minimap button to organize my add-ons a bit more, and then I also ended up moving some of the elements on my screen slightly, but yeah, for the most part, it was that easy. After I got the add-on installed, I noticed that my keybinds weren't really set up for the bar layout that they had, so I did have to rebind everything. I also had to go into Cell and set up my click cast keybinds that I wanted. This is pretty standard when playing any new character though, and I do try to generally keep all of my keybinds familiar. So for example, my kick goes on F, my defense is on E or R, my rotational abilities on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Q, and then my cooldowns on control 1, 2, and 3. This just helps make multi-classing significantly easier, since I know that certain abilities will always be on the same keybinds. One other optimization I made for my weak auras was I had already set up my rotational abilities from the one time that I played Ret while leveling, and I was used to having my abilities in a different order than they were on the weak aura. The nice thing about the Luxthos weak aura packs that it installs for you though is that they are fully customizable. So I was actually able to go in and reposition where these abilities were on my aura so that they appeared in the order that was consistent with my keybinds. And after setting everything up for the season, there wasn't really much to do this first week. The first week of the season, Mythic Plus isn't open, so the only thing really for me to do was run some delves and Mythic Zeros to fill my vault. This is nice though, because it lets me start out the season with low pressure, since I can get some gear and learn my class a little before diving straight into a timed run. I actually had a lot of fun progressing through these delves this first week. Doing a delve on 1 or 2 was pretty easy, but I quickly scaled up to doing 8s, and this is where I actually met my first challenge as a Rep Paladin. The trash didn't seem too bad to clear, but the final boss in this delve gave me a really tough time. With my low item level, I really had to push my class to its max, which forced me to learn quite a bit. I actually even ran out of lives this first time because I was determined to beat him. I tried saving my cooldowns for ad phases, bopping Bran when ads came out, I had to taunt the boss out of puddles because Bran would tank it in the goop, and I oftentimes would bubble res Bran during ad phases if he died. I basically had to practice this fight over and over, and by my 8th delve, I felt like I was pretty good rolling into this season, and ready to wake up to a full vault and start my challenge. As week 1 began, I was very excited to open my Great Vault. I got pretty lucky with getting myself a tier helm and tier pants in my vault to start the season, and this is great because it gives me options on what I want to take. Ret's tier set I know this season gives them a big boost after they get their 4 set, so I wanted to hold off on picking a piece until I ran my raid finder. But unfortunately, after clearing the 3 bosses this week, I didn't get any loot. That's okay though, we will take our hero track helm then and start the season off right. From here I did encounter my first issue. I started playing beyond the first day of the season, which meant that pretty much everyone had already progressed past running +2 keys almost instantly. Since I'm trying to do this process solo without bringing on help from my friends, it was actually kind of annoying since it could take a really long time to get anyone to sign up for my +2 key. I could potentially try signing up for someone else's group, but honestly my item level is still a little low and I have no rating at all. I can't imagine my little Rep Paladin looks so appealing to others. And already I'm being given a whole new perspective on the game, and I really empathize with people trying to get into Mythic Plus who maybe don't have friends to play with. Because oh my goodness, I would wait in these queues for 15 minutes to do my 2 key, and then not even 10 minutes into the key, the tank would do some sort of crazy pull and we would all end up dying and then someone would leave. So for anyone who's complaining about this exact same thing in Mythic Plus, I just want to say I hear you, it sucks. But I do know from experience that it does get better if you can tough it out a little bit, so I waited for my group to form and off I went. Immediately I started realizing some of the nice things that this UI pack does though. For starters, you'll notice throughout some of my footage that I still have some old weak auras left over for my other characters. Sorry skill capped, I know that this is a little annoying. For example, on the top of my screen, you'll notice I have this weak aura that notified me when my potion was ready, just because I found I would often forget or not realize when it came up. But then you'll notice skill capped actually has both a health potion and a temper potion tracker right above my character frame, which essentially serves the same purpose, just in a way cleaner fashion. Over to the left of my UI, I try to take advantage of the click castings I set up on Cell, even making use of my Hand of Sacrifice and Blessing of Protection on the Hunter in our very first pull. I know off-healing is also a pretty great thing that I can do as Ret, but honestly I found it kind of hard to keep tabs on my Holy Power while looking at my party frames since I'm so new to Ret Paladin. In fact, this was kind of one of my biggest complaints with the UI as a whole. It's actually super awesome all of the information it gives you access to, but if you're setting it up with one button, for most players, you're not going to know how to fully utilize all of this info to begin with. For example, let's take a look at the UI. Up here we have all of the group stops, which is something that is super valuable in coordinated groups, but I'm not fully sure how I'm supposed to utilize this yet as a pug. Down here we can see externals though, which again is pretty nice, but a coordinated group would definitely benefit from this more because they can call for it if they need an external. It's also worth mentioning that when I am brand new to Ret Paladin, I also hardly even know what my buttons do, so the thought of actively utilizing any of this information to me right now just feels a little unrealistic. That being said, something that you definitely can utilize here as a pug is that this UI actually tracks your party's offensives and defensive cooldowns on the left. This means I could potentially see if somebody doesn't have a defensive up for a mechanic, and then I could toss them a Hand of Sac or maybe a Word of Glory to help them out. Not only that, but something that you can do as a tank is keep tabs on your group's offensives to know if it's maybe time for you to do a larger pull to get full value out of those cooldowns. Now I think this sort of awareness can really set you apart as a tank, since not always are you going to want to do the exact same pulls in dungeons the exact same way. Sometimes it's better to adapt based off of the cooldowns that your group has available, especially in pugs where there's a bit more variance. Of course, above your party's frames, you'll also see that we have an interrupt tracker as well to keep an eye on what kicks your party has available. All around, basically just all of the information that you could possibly need available to you, with almost an infinite skill ceiling to learn how to use it. There's also some really nice indicators on Cell that will showcase if your party gets targeted by mechanics or maybe has a debuff that is threatening them. This is what helped me make the decision to use Bop on our Hunter. I noticed that he had a bleed on him and was targeted by another mechanic, and I'm not actually sure if it saved his life or was more of an inconvenience than anything, but without something set up like this, there's no way I would be able to inconvenience my Hunter nearly as easily. Now as mentioned, there is no way that I'd be able to make use of all of these tools right now. I just don't know what my class does hardly at all right now. However, this could be cool for someone like you who maybe has their class down. In which case, this one-click setup could basically give you all of the tools that you could ever need, which is super sick. And if by chance there's anything in this UI that you don't like, you can completely customize it. So you can add things, remove things. It is all up to you, it's just a good starting point. Of course, this first group that I was in fell apart. Later on, I tried to run it again, waiting in queue a second time for quite a while before a tank messaged me to join. They didn't even queue for the dungeon, they just said that they were new to tanking and looking to give it a shot. Honestly, I'm not super picky with who I invite to groups, especially not for a 2 key. I feel like it's kind of a roll of the dice a lot of the times. You can't always predict what players are good and what players are bad, and honestly, some of the more confident tanks I've queued with tend to be the ones who brick the keys anyway. This tank did great. He was a little slow, so it was stressing me out since I did have to time my 2 key to get out of this +2 jail that I was in, but honestly, they did fine. You'll notice during this key, I also have another weak aura enabled for my old weak aura pack that is cluttering my UI. This one is a Bloodlust and Battle Res tracker. This is a weak aura that I'd still probably like to keep. I believe Cell tracks the number of battle reses on top of it, but it's not always visible for my frames positions. I would have to find a better spot for it where it doesn't overlap with elements of the skill capped UI, but I just wanted to mention this, that this is not part of their UI and it shouldn't be a concern for most of you. All things aside, we were able to get this key done and boosting it to a +3 Eco Dome. It's kind of funny that lower keys are a bit less stressful generally, but depending on your group, they can actually be a little bit more demanding. For example, this +3 felt great, and honestly, I didn't really make use so much of my click castings on Cell really at all. I kind of just slammed through the dungeon, focusing a bit more on my rotation, actually doing some decent DPS on some of these packs. This was a really nice change of pace from the +2 that we did earlier, where I felt like I really needed to be so much more impactful with my utility. The reality is though, if I'm not comfortable enough with my rotation, it's going to be so difficult for me to really get the value out of my class that I need, which is why I really need a chance to focus a bit more on myself in these middle keys before I really need to be a team player in the higher keys. We ended up +2ing this dungeon, setting me up perfectly with a 5 Halls of Atonement. You really can't get too invested into each individual key. It definitely is a lot easier to put together a group for a 5 than it is for a 2, but honestly this key bricked pretty quickly as well. We had a lot of trouble with the affix on this one. Admittedly, Halls of Atonement is a pretty rough key, especially for tanks. There is a lot of really frustrating stuff in this key. These gargoyles have knockbacks that really suck, the Houndmasters are a ranged mob that needs to be kicked, otherwise you'll basically die, and Reavers later on in this dungeon apply a Mortal Strike, just all around making this a very unfriendly tank dungeon. After our key dropped down to a 4 though, coincidentally we just got a very solid group and pretty much breezed through this entire dungeon, +2ing it. Another thing I will say that is very nice about this UI is the plater profile that it sets up. I believe this is Jundi's plater profile, and it makes it really easy to figure out what the mobs actually do. For example, the light blue colored health bars means that that mob has a kick. Generally these are mobs that cast a lot of bolt-like abilities such as these obliterators. This means when running into a pack, I can place my focus on one of these targets, making it super easy for me to kick them while targeting a priority mob. The other thing that is really nice is that there's a different color for the cast bar if your kick is off cooldown, meaning that you can know just by looking at them if you're able to kick the mob in the moment. And I find that this helps a ton in keys. Finishing the halls brought me to a 6 floodgate, which we slammed through, getting us to 1000 rating, which I think is actually where I'm going to stop for this week. As much as I would love to fill up a full vault this first week, I'm also trying not to sweat too hard with this challenge, and I just want to take things at a normal pace while I experiment with this new UI. If you want to follow along with this journey though, as I climb to Keystone Hero and higher using Skill-Cap's one-click UI and the courses on their website, then be sure to give the video a like and let us know what you think in the comments below. Other than that, I will catch you guys in the next video.